Steve Gardner, USA Today, baseball writer, kind enough to join us. Working a little overtime today. How you been, pal?
I'm busy, tell you the truth, Rich. It's a lot of stuff, but it's a good kind of busy.
It is. All right, let's get into the Yankees move for a moment. I mean, I think it's a great move. I do, because you get rid of an inconsistent Clippard. He's pitched poorly. You give up a couple minor leaguers who you believe are not going to, be the diamonds in the rough, if you will. You acquire Frazier. You get a right-handed power reliever in Robertson. You get the kid Tommy Cannell. So you bolstered the bullpen, right? Because now you can throw him out. You still got Robertson. You still got Betances, where you can maybe give a little bit of a breather. And the Yankees address the situation at third base and maybe, if need be, at first base. So I think it was a monster move for them.
Yeah, it was huge for them, and not only that of the guys that they got, but also the fact that the Red Sox were hot and heavy to try and acquire those same guys, and they kept them away from the Red Sox. So kind of a win-win-win on all sides for the Yankees.
Do you suspect that Frazier, the Yankees will play him full-time at third base? Headley's been good against righties. He's dreadful against lefties.
Well, I think the thing is that Frazier can play both first base and third base, and that's one of the things, when he was with the Cincinnati Reds and Joey Votto got hurt, Frazier moved over to first base and was okay. So I think he gives them the flexibility to where if they want to, keep Headley sharp, they can do that. They can play him at third, play Frazier at first, and if they want to try and maybe upgrade at first base, it still allows them to do that if they still have the need to do it. But yeah, I think either way, it gives them that power bat. At third base, the Yankees were last in the majors in home runs from the third base position. Now they've definitely rectified that problem.
Yeah, and listen, he's coming off a season where he hit 40 home runs, so he's struggling late. The batting average isn't where you want it to be, but he's a slugger. And in that ballpark, you've got an opportunity to really drive the baseball. And if he gives them some big hits in late August and maybe in the postseason, listen, it's not a long-term solution. It amazes me, though. You look at what Cashman's been able to do. I mean, you can play fantasy baseball for a moment, and you look at 2019, Didi at short, Torres at second, Machado at third, right? Possibly first base is open. But then how about an outfield where you look at Judge and right, Frazier in center, and Harper in left? I mean, they're going to go after those guys, and they've got the money to do it.
Yeah, the fact that they save some payroll and have some cheaper guys in the prospects that are coming up gives them a lot of flexibility. I don't know that they'd be able to get both Machado and Harper, but certainly at least one of those guys has to be in play for them, and they can fit. I wonder, though, the one thing I wonder is, with the emergence of Aaron Judge, and if he continues to be the dominant player that he is, would they even go that hard after Harper, knowing that both of them are essentially right fielders? Maybe that lessens the need to go after Harper and increases the possibility that they go after Machado.
Can you put Harper in left?
I'm sure you could. I mean, you could kind of put him in center. He's played some there too, but I think they have plenty others, better possibilities. Aaron Hicks is probably going to be there for a little while too, so you could put him in left. But yeah, that's definitely an embarrassment of riches for sure.
All right, let's talk with the other team in New York before we go around the dime with you a little bit. It just seems as though the Mets right now, they're playing. I don't understand it. I mean, I get that. I get the injuries. I get the inconsistent play. You have Reyes going back to being Reyes with just the lackadaisical approach last night. I didn't think it was going to be this bad for the Mets, and I know we've talked Terry, but I'm more curious when you look at some of these players right now: Bruce, Cabrera, Granderson, Reed, Duda. It just seems as though they're willing to not only throw in cash in trades of veterans, but it just seems like it's almost like they got to tear it down and then build it back up.
I think so, and especially noticing how the Yankees right across town were able to take a team that was a contender that was slumping, a suspected contender 2 years ago that slumped, and they were able to rebuild things to the point where They just missed last year, and then all of a sudden now they're back in the mix again, and possibly a playoff team, possibly a contender for the World Series. I think the Mets could try to emulate that very easily, or at least make an attempt to, if they can get somebody to take Duda or Addison Reed. There was a little bit of talk that maybe the Yankees would be interested in going in that direction instead of going with the White Sox. So they're going to have to test out the market, see if anybody is willing. And once these deals, the more deals that are made that don't involve the Mets, the more difficult it is for them to unload some of those guys. And especially the J.D. Martinez trade, there aren't that many teams that need a corner outfielder that are in the market to buy right now. So it's going to be tough to unload Jay Bruce.
Which leads me to that trade you just mentioned. What did you think about that trade? To me, the Diamondbacks, it tells you that, hey, we're not going anywhere. We're also in it to win it this year.
Yeah, it was a fabulous trade for them, and they already have a good offense. But the one thing that J.D. Martinez gives them, in addition to somebody that can slot into that number 5 spot behind All-Stars Paul Goldschmidt and Jake Lamb, he hits left-handed pitching very, very well. And a lot of the Diamondbacks, that's where they've had some problems this season in hitting left-handed pitching. He can do that. He can be a force in the middle of that lineup, and he certainly fits in because, like the Yankees with third base not getting a lot of production, the Diamondbacks haven't gotten much production at all out of left field. They can put him in that outfield now, and all of a sudden it looks quite formidable. And, talk about hitting left-handed pitchers, they're going to have to go through some pretty good ones if they expect to get to the World Series, most notably the two in Los Angeles of Clayton Kershaw and Alex Wood right now.
Well, listen, they're not catching the Dodgers, but they're the front runners in the NL for the wild card. And then you have Cleveland, you have the Cubs 5.5 back, St. Louis 7.5 back in the NL wild card. Do you think this move gives the Diamondbacks a little more staying power?
I do. I certainly do. And whether they go and look for some pitching to bolster their rotation or their bullpen, it seems like a secondary move compared to this one. And yeah, I think they're looking ahead, probably not to win the division, but if they win the wild card game, for instance, I think they're going to match up against the Dodgers, in the division series. So you've got to be, maybe thinking a little bit, move or two ahead. And to the Diamondbacks' credit, it looks like they're doing that right now.
The Dodgers are just playing lights-out baseball, and I'm wondering, is it just a product of them being a hot having to deal with a hot streak, or do you look at this team and say, on paper, especially with the starting rotation? I mean, no one expected Wood to have this type of season. I mean, the kid, I think, coming in, his career high was 12 wins, and you still got Kershaw, you still got those bats in that lineup. I mean, are they? It might sound goofy to say, but Are the Dodgers legit in your mind, or are they just kind of this spur of the moment? It's a heck of a winning streak and stretch of baseball they played over the last month and a half.
Yeah, I don't think you can get 28 wins in 32 games or whatever their streak is. Yeah, I don't think you can do that just kind of muddling through and be a mediocre team. I think this is an outstanding team. The fact that they had Cody Bellinger come in and fill that spot in the lineup to give them the offense, and they're getting contributions across the board, from the Chris Taylors of the world to where, he can fill in anywhere where there seems to be a hole in the lineup. It's a lineup, I think, that doesn't really have a weakness. And if Yasiel Puig can somehow or another stay focused for, an extended period of time, he gives them another impact bat in that lineup. And if they need to, they can dig into their farm system where they've got a guy named Walker Buehler, who's a pitcher who could come up and give them, a middle relief help, or he could possibly start for them. And Alex Verdugo is tearing up AAA. He was in the All-Star Futures game. They've just got a wealth of talent there, and they've built quite a team. Even if they don't get another bullpen piece, as they're rumored to be shopping for, this is a team that can certainly go to the World Series and win it.
Yeah, and you look at the games that they won in this current winning streak, you're looking at 3-2, 1-0, 5-4, 5-4, 1-0, 4-3. So, the pitching, it's got sustainability. Kershaw, I mean, is this the best that he's pitched right now in his career?
Gosh, it's so hard to say because he's been so good, throughout his career and been so consistent. But, he's striking out more batters. His strikeout rate is as high as it's ever been. His velocity is good, still hanging in there, right about in the mid-90s. There's nothing about the numbers that says that he's, tailing off at all. I don't know. He's had so many outstanding years that it's hard to say. He's just so consistent. I think that's the one thing about Kershaw is that he gets the job done day in, day out. The only thing that he's missing on that resume, is the postseason record.
Which and you and I, we've had that discussion with Kershaw come postseason time. But listen, 7 straight decisions. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's 6. It's 7. It's a complete game. It's 7. It's 6+. I mean, he is the best pitcher in baseball right now. Now, a team they might see down the road, perhaps, would be the Houston Astros. And I know the Astros are running away with it in the AL. Again, you can say they're one of the best teams on paper as well. They've got that great lineup. We've already talked about it. Do you think they'll approach the deadline any differently with Carrera being injured?
I don't think they're going to do anything to try and get somebody who can play shortstop. I think they're content with waiting for Correa to come back. Because they have such a big lead. I think the question with the Astros at the trade deadline is, are they going to be able to get another starting pitcher to go with? Dallas Keuchel needs to come back and be healthy. We think that he should be able to do that. Lance McCullers is an outstanding young pitcher with great stuff, but they kind of need that third starting pitcher, I think, to go deep into the postseason. And, whether it's Sonny Gray or whomever else, it looks like the Astros, if they're serious and they want to put the hammer down, they kind of need another starting pitcher. So we'll see what they do. I think that they're fine with the everyday lineup, but where they go with the pitching, maybe add a bullpen arm. That's probably what they're going to address, and it doesn't make a difference. What happened with Correa? They're still in that pitching first mode, I think.
All right, 122 on a Wednesday. Gardner, kind enough to join us for a couple moments. Great writer for USA Today, covers baseball. Rich Quinones here. Last one before I let you get out of here. Phil's on top of the Marlins, 3-2, middle of the fourth in Miami. So you look at the Phillies right now, and I've been talking about this for the last several weeks. Did the manager, Pete McKinnon aside for a moment, when you look at who they thought were going to be their building blocks, and it just hasn't panned out, whether it was going to be Franco, whether they were looking to replace Howard with Joseph and thinking Joseph was going to be the next Howard after what Howard did when they basically parted ways with Jim Tomei. It just hasn't panned out. And we understand they're rebuilding, and it's tough to watch. But, you got these rumors right now, whether it's Yelich, whether it's Stanton, whether it's Gordon. To me, they're in a precarious position because it's like, if you want to make a move for some of these guys and someone to have team-friendly contracts, no doubt, you're going to have to give up some of your prospects, whether it's going to be a Williams, a Sanchez, a Hoskins, a Moniak, an Alfaro. Or do you believe that the Phillies are just so set on their ways, they refuse to part ways with any of these prospects, whether they're ready to come up or not? Because I'm torn between this. Are they gonna sell off and admit we should have start this rebuilding process a couple years ago, or let's try to make a pitch and make a play for one of these big bats?
I just don't see anybody that they could acquire right now as being enough to put them into contention mode anytime soon. I think it seems to me. And you mentioned Nick Williams, who's an interesting prospect. He's looked pretty good since he's come up. I think they need to rebuild with those, around those prospects, like the ones that you talked about, Rhys Hoskins, Sixto Sanchez, guys like that. I think that's the way to go. And to get derailed, we've seen teams, like the way that Milwaukee has built, and the way that the Yankees probably not in the same sort of ballpark, but the Cubs back several years ago. It took a couple of years of getting high draft picks, stockpiling prospects, and letting them all, or at least focusing them, kind of like what the White Sox are doing now, focusing on 2 or 3 years down the road. And I think if you're making a play for a Christian Yelich or a Giancarlo Stanton, you're not focused that far down the road. It's a lot closer in. And I just don't think they have the rest of the players in the organization to be able to start winning that soon. I think they got to focus, 2 and 3 years down the road to start everything, coming together.
Yeah, and Sanchez is 18 and Moniak's 19. So it's, again, you're talking about low A ball. So you got to see them a little more throughout the minor league system. But I'm reverting back to the Astros a couple of years ago when they were losing 100 games. You just get the sense that, and quite frankly, Steve, I don't know what they're going to do with the manager. You can only fault the manager so much, but you know this. Eventually, sometimes you think by firing a guy, that shakes things up. It doesn't always necessarily mean it will. But I just don't know if he is a major league manager, and I say this with respect.
Yep, it's a very valid question, and I don't know the answer to it either. But the way that things have gone, it seems like you need somebody maybe that possibly somebody from within the system. I don't know what the managers within the minor leagues look like in terms of major league pedigree, but somebody that has had experience with these younger guys and kind of knows their development curve, and maybe there's somebody in the system that's able to do that, or maybe there's somebody outside the organization that can be that type of person. But it seems like for the Phillies to take that next step, there's probably going to have to be a change in the dugout.
All right, my friend, great stuff as always. I know the trade deadline right around the corner. I know they're keeping you busy today. I always appreciate it. You're always a good read and a great insight on the air. We will talk next week, and don't get too crazy with all these trades.
I'm trying not to, but if we have a couple more of them in a single day, I think it'll border. I'll be on the borderline, I think.
All right, we'll be checking out the Twitter feed. I appreciate it, Steve.
Thanks, Rich.
All right, you got it.